All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Animal Horizon, where we dive into the latest, most interesting news related to animals, animal rights, veganism, all that kind of stuff. Welcome, especially to our special guest here. We've got Catherine Klein joining us today. Welcome, Catherine.
Hello.
Thank you. There we go. That's what I was waiting for. And my co-host Lawrence Anton, as always, to take us through the day. And what an interesting first topic we've got to get into today. Definitely a weird one about this vegan murder cult. And no, this is not clickbait. Just to get that right off the bat, this is not clickbait. We're going to talk about a legitimate cult that happens to be vegan. So let me just pull this up and I'll show you what's going on. So they're called the Zizians, okay? And this is an extremist murder cult that apparently have been responsible for a couple, well, so far what we know, at least six murders in the USA linked to this cult-like group called the Zizians. They're led by a person called Jack Sis Lasota, who's apparently a vegan computer scientist. They've been linked to six murders across the US, and their members, and this is where the vegan part comes in, their members are mostly transgender, non-binary, deeply invested in animal rights, veganism, radical philosophical beliefs, including transhumanism, and anti-law enforcement ideologies. So this is the kind of, I don't know what you would call it, as the belief systems or the kind of attributes of these people that have got together and started killing people. So apparently this violent rampage they've been on began with the confrontation with a landlord in California. And by the way, this is all that we know. This happened in November 2022, which led to one murder and then the eventual killing of the landlord as well in January 2025. So there's been two murders linked with that one. They're also tied to the shooting of a Border Patrol agent in January 2025, and also murders of two of one of their parents in Pennsylvania. And their philosophical and political views emphasize veganism as part of a broader extreme ideological framework. But of course, it doesn't appear to be, and this is what we're going to get into, it doesn't appear to be that they're killing because of veganism. Actually, there's some kind of ideological thing they've got going on, some kind of, what seems to be driving them is their beliefs around the system and law enforcement as opposed to veganism. Now, the media, as always, a lot of media and a lot of Twitter as well have covered this, and they've hyper-focused on the vegan aspect of this, that these people were vegan. And I always find this really funny because, it's not funny that there are serial killers out there, to be clear. It's horrible this is happening. But I find it funny that when there are serial killers in general operating, nobody focuses on what they eat, even though the vast majority of serial killers are and were not vegans. Nobody's saying that these non-vegan serial killers, these meat-eating serial, they look, one of their beliefs was that they believed in eating meat. No one does that. But when a vegan commits some kind of atrocity, that's always there in the headline, isn't it? Even though it has nothing to do with, the reason that they've been going out and killing. Do you ever find that? You guys find that as well, that there's this hyper focus on veganism?
You get it a lot with parental neglect cases where a parent has neglected their child and maybe the child is like malnourished in some way. And most of the cases of those around the world will be, it is just parental neglect. But if it's a vegan parent feeding their child plant-based, somehow it's the vegan diet's fault, or it's like vegan parents torture child or something like that. Like it hyper focuses on the vegan part.
No, exactly.
What were their motivations?
Well, that's the thing. It seems
anarchism?
to be. Say again.
You said they were anarchists. Was it like politically?
Yeah, they believe in transhumanism and they're anti-law enforcement. So I think maybe
I don't know what that is. What is transhumanism?
Lawrence is the nerd here. You explain it.
Transhumanism, it comes in all like different shapes and sizes, but basically it's the pursuit of basically like upgrading humans using genetic modification and, incorporating technology into, like bionics and stuff like this, and changing our genome basically to give us supernatural powers, like more strength, more intelligence, stuff like this.
So they're killing people. What, like, why exactly?
I think there's some element of it as well, which is like it can be a very anti-human movement, transhumanism, because it says that humans are very flawed, and what we need to do is give more of our brains over to computer systems and things, because they're better at making decisions than we are. And it's a very anti-human philosophy in some parts, and that's probably the one they're into. They probably have little to no respect for humans in our current form. They probably think that we're some kind of disease or something, which they probably use that to go and justify murder. I would assume this is why. I mean, why else would transhumanism be something that leads somebody to murder? So I'm just making some assumptions there.
Did you also mention that it says that most of them are non-binary and transgender?
Apparently, yeah. So apparently, because they've been listed as the vegan transgender murder cult is basically what most things are referring to.
Of course, that's what the media is.
That's what I was going to say. How it's super weird, because maybe it's because we're focusing on the veganism part as well. But I thought, like, if they picked anything, I would have thought they'd have gone for like transgender, non-binary, because that's much more like a hot button political thing that papers like to focus on, rather than veganism.
They have them as well. They've combined the two, because I mean, a lot of, like, you've seen a lot of mainstream media likes to throw LGBT stuff in the same bucket as vegan stuff, which is really weird. And I always find that quite odd, because most LGBT people are not vegan, and most vegans are not LGBT. But the second the two come up, the media and lots of Twitter users especially, they're just like, oh yeah, of course they are, trans and vegan, of course they are, and things, and use that as kind of like a slur, if you will. So yeah, it has been done that way. Obviously, we're just focusing on the vegan element of it, because that's what we're here to talk about. But one thing, go ahead. I was
gonna say, it sounds like neither of those identities were relevant to like their motive.
100%. Yeah,
and what's funny as well is when you first mentioned this story to me, David, about a vegan murder cult, what first came to my mind is that it was a group of vegans where that was their motivation, like they were going around killing farmers and stuff like that. But like you said, like they killed a border guard, like I mean, there's no obvious link to veganism there.
No, of course not. I mean, we know that, and there's no obvious link to anything relevant to trans or non-binary stuff either. These days, identity is everything, especially for the media, and especially for society that likes to just make black and white judgments as quickly as possible. You see it whenever there's any kind of major bad thing that happens. People make assumptions about who the person is that did it right away, and their identity. But one take I want to just give, this is quite controversial to say, but one thing that surprised me here is that a lot of the people who have spoken out against these guys, and they should, by the way, I think people should speak out against this. It's obviously horrible that it's a murder cult. It's terrible. But I found this really interesting, that they're killing for their own political aims. They have political aims. They probably disagree with the system. They probably disagree with the state of humanity, things like that. And so they think they're justified in killing. And everyone says, no, they're not. I've not seen anyone support them. Yet, just a couple of months ago, people supported Luigi, the United Healthcare killer. And
I was hoping you would bring him up.
Well, he did exactly the same thing. He went out and killed because of his political beliefs and his political agenda.
Yeah, but he's sexy, okay? That's what.
Can you very briefly, because I think this may benefit some in the audience as well, catch us up on Luigi, because I don't know the details.
Oh, so basically, he had severe chronic back pain, and his insurance provider refused to cover it. And so and then this is obviously, this healthcare company is obviously like billionaire, probably something like that, these guys. And so he took it upon himself to go and kill the CEO as a politically motivated murder. And and I'm not supportive of these guys for sure, but this was kind of more of a sideline thing. I just don't think that it is smart for us to be justifying any sort of political murder without any due process or anything, whether it be this guy's or whether it be Luigi. And I just wanted to make that point, because I found a lot of hypocrisy in this and inconsistency, and I think it's really harmful that society gets behind a murderer.
I have some thoughts. Okay, so I have always been like committed to nonviolence, and I would. that situation with Luigi actually really almost radicalized me, because before I obviously would have condemned his actions like 100%. But it was just really interesting because we view what he did as wrong because he murdered someone, and generally murder is wrong, duh. But what this healthcare CEO did is murder on like a much larger scale, but we just don't see it as murder.
Right, it's not so legally defined that way. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when we don't see what he did as murder, it's much easier to be like, oh yeah, what Luigi did was terrible and unjustified. But when we do see what he did as murder, because in the United States, like, people don't have access to healthcare, which causes like thousands and thousands of people to die because they can't get the treatment without going into debt, and putting their families in debt, whatever. So a lot of people like actually die as a result of our healthcare, or health insurance industry. So it's kind of like I'm not advocating that people go out and kill CEOs, but sure. I think that the response was shocking, like to see such bipartisan support of his actions was crazy. And it just shows like how many people are now seeing what these CEOs are doing as murder, which has changed people's perception of his actions. But the reason I don't see, because you were saying like it's hypocritical to support Luigi and not support this group. So
for example, yeah.
So I would say the difference is that, because I would not support like vegans going out and murdering like the CEO of some meat, like animal agriculture. Yeah, I wouldn't support that because I know. I thought about this because it's not like a politically, like, the optics are terrible. We don't have the support of the masses on our side.
I can't say, I got to be honest with you, just to interrupt you there. And when I'm thinking about whether or not to murder someone in cold blood, optics is generally not something I'm considering. Generally, my main consideration is that as to whether it is justified to commit a severe act of violence against another human being. And in 99.9% of cases, the answer is it isn't. And I think I can't see, even though I empathize with what you're saying about the United Healthcare and the denial of and what they do, you can't position yourself as judge, jury, and executioner. If somebody is using the law and circumventing the law to do bad things to people, I just don't see that as like, oh, we get the right then to become judge, jury, and executioner and take out violent and actually just kill people. I mean, there's so many things he could have done that would have been as effective, if not more effective, than murdering the CEO. They'll just get another CEO. They'll just get another CEO.
I think that the difference is that, like, I agree with you. That's not, if I were to design the ideal society, like, obviously I don't think we should be going and taking that justice into our own hands and killing people. But like the reality is that the system we live in is like so fucked, like it's so unjust. We don't have any other means for justice at this point. So it's like almost the argument is like self-defense essentially. Oof. So it's like what else are we supposed to do? Like, we can't, like, we've tried, like Bernie Sanders, we tried to get him in office to like get Medicare for all. We've tried like all these polite society, better alternatives, but like they're just not working.
Have we tried any? I mean, it feels like we've gone from protest and trying to vote people in, and then just skipped a few stages and gone to straight up murder. I mean, I'm sure there was something before murder we can do before it comes to shooting someone dead in the street because we disagree with them politically and what they're doing.
What else can be done?
There's various forms of pressure campaigning and direct action that actually cause people a lot more distress than killing them. Killing somebody is very quick and easy, boom, done, and it harms their families, it harms the people around them. It doesn't harm them necessarily. Whereas if you want to pressure the people that they live with, you want to pressure the places they do business with, you want to pressure where they go to the gym, you pressure where they do their shopping, you literally hound them and make their life very, very, very difficult. Then that's how most pressure campaigns that have been successful by making these people's lives not like, and making their lives like you're not trying to kind of bully them necessarily, but you just make it so that wherever they go, people know the bad things that they've done. You make that wherever they go, it's difficult for them to live a normal life, and eventually they're gonna have to make change. Otherwise, they're gonna have to, live like that forever. Sustained pressure.
I can imagine forgive me if a campaign like this has already been done, but when David was mentioning campaigns that I was one came to mind and you could get like quite striking images from it of people like Luigi who have, some severe ailment, right? And it's not being covered by the insurance company. They're not paying out. These people could maybe group together and just stay outside of the headquarters with nooses around their neck with the words of their condition on it. That seems like it could be quite striking imagery. It's, the message is like, this company is basically putting the nail in our coffin because they're not helping us with the ailment that we've paid them to cover or whatever. I have no idea if it would actually catch on, but that's like an example of a potential campaign.
That's an example of like some protest, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's a pressure campaign. Go on, sorry.
No, but that could be, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, our microphones are a bit louder, I think, so it's easier to. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's all right.
I mean, I haven't like fully fleshed out everything, like my thoughts on this, but this is just
spitballing.
I think that, I'm against violence. I would, if my brother came to me and was like, hey, I have this plan to shoot this CEO of, some fossil fuel, whatever, I'd be like, maybe let's not do that. But I just, at this point, like seeing the political climate and seeing how like we don't live in a democracy, like there's like, what the fuck are we supposed to do? Like, we're hurling towards climate collapse. Like, these CEOs of specifically fossil fuel companies and health insurance, I think those are the two industries where we have mass support of like everyone, for like a large majority seem to be sympathetic to what Luigi did. I don't think they would be sympathetic if we started killing CEOs of, meat industry execs because we don't have that support. And I don't think that vegans should be killing people because that's obviously like I'm not saying that what this murder cult is doing is okay.
No, I think we know where you're coming from.
I just think that there's a little bit of a difference because
sure. There is definitely the different cases, they're different things. I still find some inconsistency in the two, but as I've already expressed it. But I understand that they are different. But before we move on, though, I want to quickly just respond to this comment I find interesting. David, you just sounded like the people who didn't support slavery but wouldn't take illegal or immoral actions to liberate them. David's talking from point of privilege of not being a slave. Now, the problem is that you'd need to express that murdering a CEO of some CEO or high up person within the slave trade would free all the slaves. When in actual reality, you cut off one head of the snake, what happens? More heads pop up and take the place. It just creates a power vacuum. Murder is generally not a good way to make change. So no, it's not from a point of privilege of not being a slave. It's from a point of wanting to actually make permanent, long-lasting change. Murdering the CEO of a healthcare company, I don't think is going to be that change. Sustained pressure and making people's lives very, very, very difficult, every single important person's life very, very difficult, is more likely to bring about some kind of fundamental change versus just murdering one person and then they hire somebody else to take that person's place. You're not going to change the system by just going out and murdering everybody you disagree with, even if they're terrible people. That's what I think.
You know what I've thought could be quite a good pressure. Well, I don't know. Again, this is me spitballing, but a good pressure campaign that
stop coming up with pressure campaigns. We're not here to strategize a pressure campaign for everybody who's been shit on by the healthcare system. I'm sorry.
Well, I'll tell you after.
Your last one, you're getting all creative, doing some artistic stuff. That's fine, but maybe we'll do that off camera.
All right.
Let's go to the next story, Lawrence.
Okay, cool. Right. So next story.
Wait, can I actually say one thing that I
Yeah, go
don't
You're
on.
know
right.
if
I want you to actually, because I realized we didn't really close that story off. So you go, and then I'll go, and then we'll go.
It's not that I think that like murdering the CEO like solves anything directly, but
Yeah.
it was a huge catalyst. It was like a awakening for people. It was like I think that good will come out of this because it like created this huge fucking story and like class consciousness and like shook people out of their I don't know,
Like an
complacency and
inflection point.
yeah.
You're
So
like, can I
that
say,
could
like, the
lead
ends
to
justify the
more
means, basically.
that could lead to more like of the good things that you mentioned, like the pressure campaigning and all of that.
Maybe.
I don't know, but I don't think it's like people are saying this is the solution. I think it's more of like we don't care. We don't feel any sympathy for this man who murdered millions of people, or not millions necessarily, but
Sure.
like hundreds of thousands of people.
Well, you don't need to, because he's dead. He's nothing bad is happening to him,
Right.
but you should feel sympathy for everyone who was affected by it, who didn't do anything wrong, like his family and his children and his parents.
But what
if they
about
were
all
still
of the
alive.
families and the parents and the children of the people whose lives he
So yeah, but then the
was
idea is, okay, well, because these people suffered, let's make his family and friends suffer. I don't think just making more people suffer is the answer to suffering. I don't think that's a good response. You know, you did that to them, so we'll do it to you. You know, he's dead. They did nothing wrong, right? But they have to suffer now. He's not suffering. He's dead. And so I don't know, if you want to punish somebody, there are better ways to do it, I think. And death isn't even a good punishment, really, because you escape. You know what I'm saying? But to close this off, though, because we originally were supposed to talk about these guys, and we did talk about these guys. And just to kind of briefly summarize here, be careful how the media frames things. Don't let them frame it. Don't let them trick you. For example, these people being vegan and trans or whatever they are isn't the reason that they became violent. Just like the same that eating meat doesn't make you a peaceful person, being a vegan doesn't make you a violent person. Being straight doesn't make you peaceful. Being gay doesn't make you violent. Like, these things are not directly correlated, or being trans or being whatever. So these are a cult of people that have extreme political ideology and extreme political beliefs, and that's why they're going out and killing people. Also, they probably have some sort of other derangements. So just be careful with these headlines and these things that come out. That's the summary of that story, I think, in conclusion. Are we happy to leave that one? Didn't expect to go so deep into that conversation, to be totally honest with you. But it's good. I think it was a good start to the news podcast. And thank you, Catherine. This is why we wanted you here, because you bring different... Well, it's great because you bring different perspectives, and we knew you would, and that's why we want you. We don't just want to sit here and agree with each other for the whole time. So
yeah.
Awesome. Keep it
and
up.
I do think that if you hadn't brought up Luigi, I would have, because
Okay.
I think it's really interesting, like, seeing my own opinions change. Like, a month ago, or however long it was that happened, like, I would have been completely in agreement with you, David. But I don't know, that whole news story, like, it got me.
Well, maybe one day we're going to have to cover you in the news after you've gone out and murdered someone.
I won't be doing that, but...
well, a month ago, you never would have agreed with, and then a month from now, you know, who knows what's going to happen.
I'm not willing. I'm not brave enough. I don't want to go to jail. So...
Well, I mean,
just do it well then. Don't go jail.
Exactly. You know, like in somewhere like Miami, for example, it's something like a really small percentage of murders get solved. So, I mean, just go somewhere like that and do it. Get down in the Everglades, you'll be sorted. I've thought about it. Dexter. This is all Dexter talking right now.
I know. I do love Dexter too. It's hard not to.
All right, come on, Lawrence.
Yeah, go ahead and move on. I don't want to.
Let's do it, Lawrence. Let's get onto your story. Cool. What have you got?
All right, nice one. So now we're diving into, actually, it does again involve death. Two people have been hospitalized in the US for bird flu. So I don't know if people have seen this in the news, H5N1. It's this kind of recent strain of bird flu that's been going through different, well, we'll go into exactly where it's been going through, but 2 people have just been hospitalized, which is why we're sort of covering this story. It's sort of recent happening. And just to show that it's not an isolated thing, there's also been a case in the UK, there's cases in other places. And one of the interesting things that makes it super relevant here is why people are getting this. So we can go, this is the same Guardian article as before. So the Guardian article goes, the woman was exposed to poultry in a backyard flock that tested positive for H5N1. The CDC reported, adding that she remained hospitalized at the time of the report. And then the other person in America who was hospitalized was in Mercer County in Ohio, was infected while depopulating or killing H5N1 positive poultry at a commercial facility. For anyone that doesn't know what that means, and maybe Catherine and David can explain it in a more accurate way, but depopulating, basically, I don't know if different farms do it differently, but when they find that a farm or part of a farm has a certain disease that is, warrants, well, in the industry's eyes or in the government's eyes, warrants killing the whole flock or the whole group of animals, a lot of the times what they do is just shut off the ventilation and let them basically just like burn out, basically, right?
Yeah, it's one of the ways. They shut off the ventilation or they pump it with a foam that kills them.
Yeah.
They're 2 of the main ways that they do it. Do you know of any other, Catherine, ways that they do this?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're the 2 ways that I know of. Like they fill the whole place with this toxic foam that suffocates them. Not toxic. It's like some kind of. It's just foam
it's
that takes
foam,
CO2.
right?
I think it is. Yeah, it takes all the oxygen, all the breathable air out of and then it suffocates them, which is horrific. Or they turn the ventilation off and just let them die of heat exhaustion. Just sickening.
So cases of H5N1 have been going up, and basically so far there haven't been any instances of human to human transmission. So if someone gets ill, usually it ends with them. They either get better, or there has actually been one case where there's been a death. But there has been a lot of, well, all the cases in humans have been animal to human transmission, obviously, if they're not human to human. So one interesting thing that sort of, David and Catherine and I and many of the people watching will be sort of sympathetic with is this is an additional reason why animal farming and using animals in general is one, completely immoral, obviously, but also it's just like, it doesn't seem positive for us as well. And we can get into it a bit more. So this is just about the first reported death. And it links to the rise, which I think David is going to talk about later, about it's not just, the effect of people getting infected by this, but it's also had impacts on egg prices, for example. And the next thing I wanted to talk about is like the general, how is this linked to the potential risk for pandemics? So the CDC's risk assessment for the general public remains low. That's probably because the cases are just coming from animals into humans. And so you need to be someone in contact with those animals. And now the way that our societies are structured, very few people work in farming. Most people don't work in industries where you're in direct contact with animals. So for the general public, it still remains pretty low. But there is a high mortality rate, around 50%, and the strong likelihood of another zoonotic pandemic. So so here we go. So this here, this who is this woman? I forget who she is. Rasmussen. So she is a virologist at the Vaccine and Infectious Disease Organization at the University of. I'm not even going to attempt to say that. So basically, she was
Saskatchewan.
Yeah, wherever that is that in America?
Canadian province, right?
Is it? Okay, all right, okay. Sorry to.
I thought it was like a pretty. I don't know. I've seen. I think it's been in movies and stuff. That's why I know how to say it. But
okay, yeah, I've never heard of that place.
Okay.
But anyway, so on the topic of this sort of transitioning maybe into a pandemic, So what she says is, I'm very worried about H5N1 in patients that are being treated in hospitals, where there are also many seasonal flu patients, because this creates opportunities for what's called reassortment, which could potentially produce a pandemic capable of H5N1. Now, I don't know if there are any experts watching, maybe I'm completely ignorant, but my understanding of what she's saying is basically there are these cases of H5N1, which they're rare, but when you get them, they are quite deadly. And then you're having these people treated in hospitals where they are being treated alongside people who have general seasonal flu, which has a much lower death rate, but it is much more contagious. And maybe, I assume this reassortment phenomena is when these diseases somehow like merge together and have attributes from both. So you could get this capacity for H5N1 to spread much more, basically, and start going human to human rather than just animal to human. So that's kind of like the risk around the potential for pandemics. And on pandemics, so this for me opens up like a wider conversation about what are the basically public health risks that using animals presents us, right? And especially something like factory farming, where you have such a condensed, where you have such a concentration of animals, often in horrendous conditions. And it is in this article where, so here, Professor Hinchcliffe says, disease is always more than a matter of pathogen transmission, contact, and contagion. The founding myth in intensive farming is that we separate livestock from wildlife and thereby shut off the risk of diseases passing between them. Because what I found through looking at this is that often diseases will come from the wild, go through farm animals, and then into humans. And it's the farming industry that provides this sort of medium through which viruses in the wild can get into humans more readily and maybe change slightly along the way, so that maybe they have a higher death rate or they're more transmissible. And there's this myth, presumably, that is convenient for the industry, that, you know, these farms, you know, they're secure, wild animals don't get in. But these farms exist in the real world, Professor Hinchcliffe says. So buildings and fences can be damaged. Wildlife like rats or wild birds can get in. Anyone who's been in a farm knows this, obviously. And workers move around, right? In short, there's always accidents. So basically, animal farming is increasing the risk of potential pandemics in the future. And the final thing that I just wanted to note on is just this Guardian article that lists pandemics in the past that have been as a result of humans being in contact with animals. So there's a bunch here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but if people want to look through this, you know, there's absolute precedent for, and you've got H5N1 here. So, you know, there's absolute precedent for this. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
That part about the people assuming that wildlife is separate from these farmed animals. Yeah. It's actually really, it's a good point, and it's something that we don't really make so obvious so often. Anybody who's spent any time in and around farms will know there are rats everywhere. Mice, rats, there's wild pigeons usually around as well, because there's lots of, there's feed usually around in places, because it's, you know, it gets spread quite, you know, just gets thrown around and stuff. And they rats especially, they literally cannot stop rats. Like, I've been in enough farms to know now that they can't stop them. The farms are not built to keep rats out, and any efforts they make, it doesn't work, because there's just too many ways for them to get in. I mean, rats get into your houses, you know, like they're not even that big. A house isn't that big, right? Think about these farms, these huge barns. They, you know, they can't plug every hole. So yeah, no, it's a really good point that these diseases are going to spread between wildlife and farmed animals, and it happens all the time. It's just one of the reasons. And then once it's in with the farmed animals, they're all in such close proximity in such dirty conditions that's why then they have to pump them full of antibiotics because of these types of problems. You know. Yeah,
that was actually that was another aspect that I didn't particularly cover, but. So you just have the process of farming itself, especially intensive farming, increases this risk for pandemics and the transmission of diseases from animals to humans. But then it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because like you mentioned, because they're in such bad conditions and the animals themselves are liable to get diseases, right? We then use antibiotics to treat the animals, so that then basically we just provide a petri dish for bacteria to develop antibiotic resistance, which in the worst case scenario basically could be the end of antibiotics as we know them. Now,
Right.
obviously the future is very uncertain because we've got AI thrown in the mix. So who knows? AI could develop new antibiotics very quickly. We don't know, but there's absolutely no point in continuing animal farming, for the moral reasons, all the other reasons that we all know. But also it's just like, even if you're just looking at this one risk, right? It's like we can produce all of the calories we need and then some with plants, and plants aren't going to give us bird flu, obviously. So it's, it just adds another argument to the case.
Definitely.
I think it's almost like a stronger argument, because we always talk about, the health reasons, but public health reasons might be more convincing.
Yeah. The health reasons we often focus on is individual, right?
Right.
Yeah. And, some people care about their individual health, but actually, if you look at the state of a lot of people, not to be rude, a lot of them obviously don't care that much about their health. They may say so, but in their revealed preferences, they actually don't that much, or maybe they're addicted to things. Who knows? It's a complicated thing. But public health, like you said, there's a responsibility on you not to engage in certain practices that are going to unreasonably, increase the risk of devastating stuff like pandemics happening to other people, right? So, yeah.
Catherine, let me ask you about this. Have you seen what's been going on with the egg crisis over in the States? Is that something you've witnessed?
It's funny because I was out to eat the other week with my husband's childhood friend, and we were talking about like inflation, prices, or whatever. And she was like, yeah, I mean, I just can't even worry about it. Like, what am I going to do? Not buy eggs? Like, I'm going to buy eggs. And I was like, well, you could not buy eggs, actually.
Yeah.
But I asked how much eggs were costing, because I haven't bought eggs in like 12 years. Actually, I don't think I've ever bought eggs, because I went vegan when I was 18. And before that, my mom was buying groceries. But anyway, I had like no concept of how much a carton of eggs costs, and she said it was like $10 for.
Oh, really?
Eggs. Yeah.
Oh
Whoa.
God.
I was like, holy shit! Like tofu is way cheaper than that. Even the just egg. I don't know if y'all have that in the UK, but it's like
we have versions of it. Yeah, I don't know if we have that brand.
It's basically like an egg substitute that is liquid, and you can make scrambled eggs or quiche or whatever.
No, it's really good. I've had it.
It's not bad. I actually prefer tofu scrambled, but it's great for like quiche and stuff. But it might actually beat out egg pricing wise now, so it's interesting. Like this is positive news in a way, because I'm like, drive up the cost of animal products. But of course, everyone is blaming like Biden, and it's like, okay,
right. No, exactly.
This is related to the bird flu.
Exactly. It's directly. Well, first of all, for those that don't know what's been going on, I mean, that you gave us a good taste of it there. Actually, here's a little. I hope this works. Here's a little clip of some craziness that's been going on.
Have you ever seen this before?
This is people. Can you hear that? It doesn't really matter if you can hear it, but yeah, people stocking up like.
That's
literally
crazy.
Buying.
It's
all
like
the
toilet
eggs.
roll all over again.
Yeah. It's embarrassing, to be frank with you, because I don't imagine. I mean, one thing, they're going to go off, right? Eggs don't last very long. But the second thing is, eggs are not like a core staple of people's diets in a developed country. I mean, when I say core staple, I mean as in they're not going to save you from dying or something. Like in other countries, for example, in rural India, eggs are genuinely like a life or death form of nutrition for people in rural India, for example. So that was a lot of pushback that I had when I was talking about veganism. Though they were saying, with like literally without eggs, a lot of people are going to be really undernourished, right? But it's not the case in the States, is it? I mean, you don't need the eggs, right? They're not like you're not going to die without eggs. And so people treating it like this is wild to me and embarrassing. And it's, yeah, like Lauren said, I find it almost as embarrassing because the toilet roll thing was more understandable, to be honest with you, because the idea of not being able to wipe your bum is a lot more concerning than not being able to eat eggs, in my opinion. I mean, I kind of get that, right? People don't know how to, they don't have the bidets or whatever to, shower their bums like they do in other countries in Europe. So I understand the concern there. But here, yeah, like you said, correctly said, the reason for this is, again, it's bird flu. And it's because what we said earlier, what Lawrence was getting at, that the bird flu was causing the farmers to do these depopulations where they literally kill every single bird in their farms because of bird flu. And why do they need to do that? Well, it's because these birds don't have any immune system. They get no sunlight. They're all crammed together. They have a really weak immune system. So when one bird gets infected, there's no treatment that's going to be sufficient for the rest of the birds. They kill all of them all at once. And it's happening. This is not just happening once. This is happening constantly. This is why this huge egg shortage has happened, because it's become a really big deal, like Lawrence was just explaining. And these birds, they're not seen as individuals or living beings. They're seen as just things. They're seen as egg machines, right? And this is why it's when there's a virus, I imagine there could be a way where they could treat them, but I imagine it would be very, very expensive and time consuming. And it makes more sense for them financially just to kill them all. And that's because they don't value these animals. The whole farmers love their animals thing only goes so far. They love them as long as they're profitable. The second they're not profitable, they don't love them anymore. You can we can argue whether that constitutes as love or not. I mean, I lean towards no, but I mean, semantics of it doesn't really matter. The point is they only care about these animals as long as they're profitable for them. And that's what's leading to all this this madness. And it's not only what we just said there. Look at this as well. Thieves steal 100,000 eggs from trailer as prices spike. So they're actually going out and stealing them from trailers now. And the farmers are slaughtering millions of chickens a month. And this has pushed the egg prices to double their cost since 2023, which is it's insane that they're slaughtering millions of chickens a month. And of course, that's going to, it's absolutely sickening that they're doing that. And yeah, of course, it's going to drive the cost of the products up. But there is instead of rioting over eggs, and it's insane that there's almost like a societal collapse over omelets. It's when you put it like that, you're like, holy crap, are you serious? Catherine, you just said the scrambled tofu, there's just egg. There's so many other things you could eat. There are things that are not even eggs at all that you could eat that would be perfectly good as a replacement for eggs in the morning. You don't need to have eggs in the morning. The society doesn't need to collapse over this. And all those millions of chickens should never be in those places to begin with. I mean, that's the takeaway message there. I mean, it's a sick situation that we find ourselves in right now with all these poor chickens and what's happening to them. So, I mean, yeah, you already alluded to it, Catherine, that there are plant-based alternatives. You can make your own plant-based eggs easily enough with tofu. There's different combinations of different ingredients you can put together to make stuff like chickpea flour, flax seeds, and black salt that gives you that eggy taste and things like that. But I mean, regardless of, I guess my final point here before I hand it over to you guys, and if you want to say something else, is regardless of whether you're a vegan or a vegetarian or someone trying to reduce or whatever you are, we should all be able to agree that we shouldn't be treating animals like some kind of assembly line. That chickens shouldn't be seen as disposable things like products. These farmers shouldn't be legally allowed to treat animals like that and kill them in the millions the second there's a disease. It's like, we're not, as a vegan, I want the world to change tomorrow, except that's probably not going to happen. So in the meantime, there should be laws in place that make it so that they're not able to just treat animals with this level of contempt. There should be protections in place. And I think, regardless of where you stand on animal rights and veganism, and whether you hate vegans and you hate animal rights people or whatever, everybody should be able to agree that that shouldn't be something that can happen, that a farmer flicks a switch and kills millions of chickens because they're sick, right? I don't know. So what do you guys, what's your take on all this?
Well, I think the CEO should watch out.
Catherine's on the job.
The only thing that kind of came up for me in my head was that, you know, people often talk a good game about you know, oh, like obviously we wouldn't agree with this, but people say, you know, oh, well, I buy from XYZ that's better conditions, blah, 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 right? Yeah. And generally, if an animal has been in better quote unquote conditions, then the animal product that has been taken from them is going to be more expensive, right? And this crisis kind of like suggests to me that actually if all chickens were treated in the way that people say that they want them to be treated in, the price increase, right, that we're seeing now is maybe going to be similar. I don't actually know what the magnitude would be, but I can imagine it would be similar to the price increase that would occur as a result of all the chickens being treated in the way they wanted to. And so it kind of shows that actually people don't even care that much, which is kind of depressing, right? Do you get what I mean? Am I making like...
Yeah, like it was crazy when I was having that conversation where she was like, well, I'm gonna buy eggs. And then she actually caught herself because she knew that she was sitting with two vegans, and she was like, oh, I mean, I know you guys don't. So it was like, it was interesting because she realized that she didn't have to, but she still felt like she had to. And so, yeah, people, I guess, are willing to, like, they're so addicted to animal products that they're almost willing to pay like these astronomical prices, which kind of shows that their whole argument that being vegan is too expensive is like complete bullshit, because like if you're willing to pay $10 for a carton of eggs, you have no excuse not to buy the like $5 tempeh bacon, you know. This
exposes it, doesn't it? It exposes that it's less about cost, it's less about nutrition, because they know they can get, everyone knows we can get nutrition from animal-free sources. We know we can get good prices on animal-free meals, animal-free foods. So these things are not it's more an addiction to the habit. It's more it's all it comes down to is the habit. There's literally, I don't even think it really comes down to the pleasure element either, because you can get taste pleasure from things that aren't animal based. So it's not even that. It's pleasure linked with habit. Everything's linked with the habit. If you were raised without animal products and you had all the reasons not to eat them, you probably wouldn't eat them. And if you did, they wouldn't become a regular part of your life because you don't have the habit in place. Your pleasure is not based on that, right, from birth. But when it is based on that from birth, that's what we're dealing with here. All the other stuff is just, those are the things people say. I don't think that's the things they mean. Like, oh, because it's, you know, being vegan will make you bad for you, or whatever. Your health will be bad, or it's more expensive. And those are the things people say. It's not the core of it at all. And like you said, like you just correctly said with your friend, it comes out in times like these, doesn't it? This is when we really see the reality, what's really driving people. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys kind of said the opposite of what I said, and I think maybe yours makes more sense. So
why? What did you say?
Well, because what I said is that the fact that there's such outrage over higher prices, and there would be higher prices if animals were treated in the way that people say. Maybe they're both correct. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Maybe you'd have to really dig into.
You're right. It's just that I mean, I guess my friend that I was talking with is like in a privileged position. So that's just one person who's willing to pay $10 for eggs. But like a lot of people are not in her position. So it will probably impact people's consumer. Like I'm sure there are a lot of like lower income people that are not buying eggs right now. And they're learning like, oh, I don't need this. Like this is easier if I just eat this instead. So
definitely, yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I think it's definitely obviously what's happened is horrible. And the whole farming system is horrible, whether they were killing them in mass in the millions or whether they were killing them in a slaughterhouse. It's all horrible that all those millions of chickens that they were born destined to be used and then just killed. I mean, that's literally what that was going to happen either way. And I can't remember where I was going to go from there. But the point is that regardless of that, it's horrible. And what people, this is what I was going to say. What this has helped people to do is, like you said, it's priced some people out of the animal product market, and specifically with eggs, and it'll make them look for these animal-free alternatives. And all you've got to hope is that now that their behavior has had to change, they have to go for something else. You'd hope that will open their mind to hearing why people choose that, even if the animal-based stuff is cheap, right? Why would somebody not eat eggs even when they're cheap? Hopefully, this is now going to open that door, because that's how our behavior works. Is if you're doing something anyway, it's easier to hear the reasons to do it.
It'll be interesting to know if any plant-based egg replacement companies have increased their marketing budget recently to capitalize on people considering shifting away. I don't know if they publish stuff like that, or maybe they publish it in like a year's time or whatever, but it'll be interesting to see how competitor companies have reacted to this situation, if they've been able to capitalize on it.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like restaurants and stuff, like they're all about, profit. So they're probably, especially for baked goods, like considering other alternatives and then realizing, oh, this is easier. And maybe, maybe we'll see a shift away from this egg obsession. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like for individual consumers, they may eat, a whole egg at a time, right? Or maybe two eggs. But in the mass-produced like bakery stuff you were talking about, where they're not eating an egg. Egg is just an ingredient, but actually, if it was changed to something else, they would not be able to tell the difference. Like in a cake, for example, you have like in London where I am, there's a chain that's called egg-free cakes, right? And they're not all vegan, but nothing contains eggs. I don't know why they did that, but anyway, at least they don't have eggs. So it's like, that's an example of how, you can just switch out an ingredient. And actually, if you didn't tell someone, they wouldn't be any the wiser. And so it's like stuff at scale could be shifted away from eggs, like you were saying.
Definitely.
That's interesting. Yeah,
definitely. And
mayo is another one. Like mayo does not need eggs. You would not know a difference. I mean, depending on which mayo you buy, obviously, but like a good vegan mayo, like no one's going to freaking know a difference. So I hope that fast food companies, I hope that this like problem, well, maybe this is not, maybe I don't wish this because I don't want another pandemic to happen, but like, I hope the problem lasts long enough to actually result in these long-term changes. Because like, imagine if you could go to Burger King and get mayo on your Impossible Burger because the mayo doesn't have eggs because of this huge egg inflation. I don't know.
Right.
That would be cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. If it goes on long enough, they're going to have to find alternatives. Yeah, they'll have to, and then maybe they won't go back again, these companies, and that would be awesome if it forces them to find an alternative. Because the thing is, any alternative to chicken's eggs is not going to have the risks that chicken's eggs comes with. Even as no morals involved, just speaking purely business language, it doesn't make sense to have a product that might not be available for some parts of the year. That doesn't make any sense. It needs to always be available. And vegan mayo, always available. There's no ingredient in vegan mayo that you cannot access always. And actually, mayo, there are recipes for mayo that you can make yourself that are pretty damn good. And you don't even need crazy ingredients. Like there's like 3 ingredients vegan mayo that you can make. Alioli as well, which is basically like garlic mayo. That the original alioli doesn't have eggs in it. Eggs are just added to these things to make them whatever, make them, I suppose, I don't know, taste better because they have more fat or something. So and I mean, to conclude this story, I mean, the panic here of running out of eggs, people should be more panicking about why this is happening and what is happening, rather than panicking about there being no eggs in the shop. That's the things that people should be talking about. Wait, why are they killing all these chickens? And wait a minute, why were so many chickens together in the first place? And wait a minute, where do they come from? These are the questions people should be asking. I think people have this concept that all the chickens in these farms, they're just taken from the wild, and we bring them in the farms, and then we have their eggs, and we set them back out again I think that's genuinely how some people, I think that these things work, But if you're talking millions of chickens, then obviously someone has bred millions of chickens. They don't just, millions of chickens will just exist in a forest and you just trap them all and put them in a farm. But I'm telling you that I've had so many conversations that people genuinely think that's how it works. They genuinely have some idea that these chickens come from the wild, which is, I know it's crazy to say, I know, but I'm telling you, a lot of people have said something like that to me.
And it's like,
I don't know, it's a really weird thing that people have this image of, you know?
Well, it's like how people think cows just produce milk, right?
Absolutely.
Which I think I was a kid when I believed this, but at one point I did believe that.
Believes a lot of weird things as a kid. I used to believe that this is off on a tangent, but we'll move on to the next story after this embarrassing story. I used to believe that the dogs that were in people's families, I used to believe that the mums of the families also gave birth to the dogs.
I've actually got a related thing which I think is equally as bad. So when I was a kid, some other kid at my school told me this, and looking back on it, I understand that he thought this because his mum didn't want to tell him the truth. But I was told by a kid at school that the way that kids are born is through a different hole about halfway down on the woman's thigh that you can't see, and it only opens up for a baby to come out. And the kid was told that, obviously, because the mother didn't want to talk about how kids are actually born. And I believed that until embarrassingly late.
Oh my God.
Well, my dog is my biological child. I don't know what y'all are talking about.
Oh my God, I was right. I was right. I knew it. I knew it all these years. I knew there was something to it.
I did see this thing on Instagram, I think, and it was like this girl went to the vet, and her vet was saying her dog had some genetic condition, and she said to her vet, "Oh my gosh, like I didn't realize like that runs in our family." And then she realized after how stupid she sounded.
That's amazing.
For a second there, I was literally thinking like, this is my biological child.
That's hilarious. That's how women give birth to dogs. It's through that hole halfway down the thigh. This is where the confusion's happened here. It's all true. It's just we've missed, some of the facts have been mixed up. That's all right. We've got it now. I'm glad we can put that to bed. Lawrence, what's our next story?
Okay, nice one. All right. So this one is kind of interesting, but also a bit messed up. So hopefully,
with all we're pretty much doing today is messed up stuff, really,
that's
isn't
true,
it?
Actually,
been pretty much the theme of today's news.
So people might have seen recently. I think this literally happened like days ago, and it's been circulating around social media. So people might have seen these videos of mice basically giving some form of what looks like first aid. So first I'm going to go over what the actual experiments and research is, and then I'm going to move on to like the ethical part of it and the ethical implications.
Well, do you have the video? Because that would be good to show people what's actually happened here, right?
Yes. Hopefully this video will work. Okay, that's not going to work. Let me just. Okay. Yeah. I'll bring it up, but let me just get it up. I'll stop.
So while you're getting it, we can talk and just give people a brief understanding. Because I know what's going on here as well. So they're doing like animal experimentation on these. It's mice, isn't it, or is it rats?
Mice.
And I guess they killed one on purpose or induced some kind of death-like state on one of the mice, and the other mouse, it appears to have. Well, you can see what happened. What the other mouse did here.
Yeah.
This is obviously, by the way, this is like, to be clear, this is horrible, obviously. But, But I guess we got a few things to discuss here. But yeah, if you want to play the clip of what's happened, and we can show.
I've taken off the audio just in case it triggers anything. But basically, what you're looking at here, like David said, so basically they artificially incapacitate a mouse. So I think they gave them some sort of sedative that makes them go to sleep, and they put them in a cage with another mouse. And essentially what they were wanting to see is whether this mouse would respond in any way. And what they found was, once we finish the video, I'll go back to the article because it has the actual numbers, but a high proportion of the mice actually went over and basically displayed like caring behaviors. So licking, stroking the unconscious mouse. And what you can see just then is one thing they also did was try to remove the tongue from the airway. That's what we're speculating is being done here. So that is, so I'll take it off that now. But so removing the tongue from the airway is something that anyone who's done first aid will remember being told when they were taught first aid, because the tongue can fall to the back of the throat and block the airway if someone is unconscious, right? You roll them onto their side as well. Now, some interesting things about this are that, there's something at the start there which I would get back onto, but if you look at this, over a series of tests, on an average, the animals devoted about 47%, so around 50% of the 13-minute observation window to interacting with the unconscious partner, showing three sorts of behaviors. They start with sniffing, then grooming, and then with a very intensive or physical interaction. They really open the mouth of this animal and pull out the tongue. Now, what's interesting is in this bit here, so maybe someone could say, I don't know, maybe they're pulling out the tongue for some other reason, maybe it's just a form of them being, them showing their distress or something like that. But in a separate test, researchers gently placed a non-toxic ball in the mouth of the unconscious mouse, and in 80% of cases, the helping mice successfully removed the object. And presumably there were other mice that tried to remove the object but were unsuccessful. So it seems relatively clear that there's some sort of instinct mice have to remove stuff from blocking an airway. I don't want to speculate too much, obviously, because I'm not a professional and blah, blah, blah. But what they say, I don't remember where in the article they say this, but the speculation is that this is instinctive behavior, not taught, because the mice that were used were young and had not been exposed to other mice doing this. It wasn't something they observed and learned. It was something instinctive to them, which is really interesting. Now, to go on to what David was saying, obviously this is highly unethical in many ways. Obviously, putting a mouse to sleep completely unnecessarily, because for multiple reasons, putting the mouses in a cage, researching on them just in general, but then putting a mouse sedated in a cage, which will then distress the other mouse to the point where they're trying to care for that mouse, remove any blockages from the airways, all this sort of stuff. So there's obviously loads of distress involved for the mice. So none of this is ethical, but it's very interesting that the results of these experiments are showing that animals are very complex beings that can do things that we often don't expect, and they can often be very caring beings as well. And the very results of these experiments are supporting the case for these experiments being unethical, if that makes sense. So it's like these these experiments are almost like what's it called? Threading the rope for their own noose or whatever. I don't remember what the saying is, but basically they're basically they're building the foundation for them to get abolished, hopefully. Which is super interesting. There's other stuff which I was quickly going to mention, but I didn't know if you guys had anything to say on that mouse stuff specifically. No.
I'm trying to. I can talk, but I was leaving a little. I'm always quick to talk, so I was leaving a little gap. But if Catherine,
I'm just surprised.
Not much to say.
I just feel like, it makes sense that animals would try to care for each other, but I'm surprised that it's that intuitive to unblock the airway. I don't think
I would also,
CPR is not intuitive to me at all. That's crazy.
I don't think humans would be, right? If I saw an unconscious human and I'd had no first aid training, it wouldn't necessarily occur to me to roll them onto their side and check where their tongue is at all.
I agree with everything you're saying. It is an incredible observation to make, but I I find myself torn because I see that it's, wow, okay, so we know mice do that. But at the same time, I feel just so horrible that those mice have these things sticking out of their heads. They've got things monitoring their brains. The way that they'll kill them once it's all over as well.
Exactly.
They it's not obviously the fact that they will kill them is enough, but the way, I don't know if you know how they kill mice in these experiments.
They usually gas them.
Done. They gas them, or they do this thing that they crush the spine. And it's just, it's horrible. And it's such an unnecessary thing. And a couple of commenters did mention this, and it's kind of like, okay, it's an interesting observation, fine. But also, we know that animals show compassion, especially social animals like mice and rats. We know they show compassion to each other because they are really socially intelligent. So the idea that, I mean, the idea that they kind of do CPR is pretty crazy, fine. But the idea that they would try to help each other is not crazy at all. Actually, the mice and rats especially are known for this. They're team workers. They help each other. They look after each other, apart from if they're like opposition, territorial, stuff like that. But they're their own team. They're extremely loving and affectionate. And so it seems like a bit of a pointless experiment, really, to be honest with you. And I don't think it wasn't worth doing this to them to find out that they try and save each other from dying. Yes, of course they do.
So another part of this kind of line of story that I think is more positive, especially because that was depressing, and a lot of what we've spoken about has been depressing, but there is a way. Can you bring my screen back up, David? Yeah, cheers. So one way that we can actually research animals and find out about their behaviors, that is, as far as I can tell, at least in principle, completely ethical, is to just observe them, right, in their natural habitat, right, or in a situation that we have not necessarily coerced them into, right. There are many animals in different situations, and we can observe them either from a distance or without interfering with them in some significant way, right. Now, this doesn't seem to have the same like ethical concerns as this form of research, but we can still gain a lot of information. And I wanted to cover a few bits or a few understandings we've gained of different species of animal with this more ethical form of research, right, through observation. So there's a couple mentioned in this article, and then I'm going to show some examples as well. So there are rare reports of large social mammals trying to help incapacitated members of their species. So wild chimpanzees touching and licking wounded peers, dolphins attempting to push a distressed pod mate to the surface so that they can breathe, and elephants rendering assistance to ailing relatives. So those are just a couple of examples. One example that people might remember from last year was this really interesting one. Did you guys see this?
Yeah.
So I can't see you at the moment, so I don't know if Catherine saw it. But so this wounded...
I haven't.
Oh, you haven't? Okay, so this one's super interesting. So basically, there was this wounded orangutan, which this orangutan was already known to humans. So they were being monitored as far as like... Sorry?
No, you say known to humans, like mates.
Yeah, he was called Gary. Okay. No, I'm joking. He did have a name, but I forget what it was. It starts with a K. Ruckus, that's it. Ruckus. Anyway, so I will put on the video, take off the volume, but basically, so you can see this orangutan from whatever, I don't know what, a fight or something, has this injury under their right eye, and then a month later it's gone, which is pretty cool for something that significant. But what's even more crazy is that the orangutan was observed using some sort of plant which is known to have medicinal qualities, crushing it up in some way, and then into a paste and putting it on the wound so that it helps the wound heal. So now I haven't done as deep dive into this as humanly possible, so I have no idea if this orangutan would have been able to somehow learn this from humans in some way, but the way that it's being communicated, it seems like it wasn't. So maybe this is something that is passed down through orangutans, which doesn't seem like crazy speculation. No. Humans are not the only species to communicate learning down the generations, right? Elephants are very well known to do this. Many other
they've got the orangutan Bible, which includes, you know, passages about the medicinal plants. Yeah, no, for sure. No, I mean, but you're right. No, you're right. They have instincts, and they have, you know, there's no reason to believe that they wouldn't have instincts when it comes to certain plants as well as certain. They know what food is, for example, right? They didn't learn that. They just know what that is. So
true. I'm no expert, so you may be right. This particular example hits me as something that isn't necessarily instinctual and is learned and passed through down culturally.
Okay.
I don't know why I have that intuition. Maybe
culturally. You know, what do you mean from? Wait. I don't get what you mean. Like culturally from other orangutans or from humans?
Yeah.
No, culturally from other orangutans. Yeah.
Okay.
So, like for example,
I think that has to be the case because, like, if the medicine actually works, like, because you were saying that the plant that he was using is known to have like actual medicinal properties.
Yeah.
That's like gotta be knowledge passed down. I don't know. That's my intuition.
It strikes me as so. And like this knowledge being passed down through generations is something that's observed through other species, right? So
can I tell you? I've got a story of one of those similar situations. This really blew my mind. It's similar to this one actually. That backs up what you're saying. That maybe it is a cultural thing. Yeah. There's these lemurs, right? And somewhere along the line, they figured out that there are these millipedes, these giant millipedes, and if they rub them on the fur, they have these toxins that repel insects, right? So they grab these millipedes, these lemurs, they just grab them, just rub themselves with them, right? Now, how would they learn that, right? Now, that's not it, though. That's not it. It gets crazier. They also figured out that this toxin, by the way, it's quite deadly to a lot of animals, and somehow, I still can't believe this. I'd love to know how they figured this out. Somehow the lemurs figured out the toxins are not deadly to them, but actually it gets them high. So they rub themselves with these millipedes, right? And then they bite into them and they just get high. And they just have this amazing like hour or so of just spacing out and just having the best time ever. And they only do it for that reason. The rubbing themselves is practical. The biting is not practical. That is literally just so because they could want to get high off it. Now, how the hell could animals have figured that out unless they were like we are, which they are like we are, right? We have that in common, that we crack codes, we figure stuff out, we tell all the rest of us, and then we learn it and it keeps around. They're doing the same thing. Some animals are doing the same thing, isn't it? It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
I knew that was the case with dolphins, like the pufferfish sit around passing the pufferfish and getting high.
Yeah.
But that's crazy. You said it was lemurs?
Lemurs, yeah.
Wow.
Some animals are known to do it with fermented fruit as well to get drunk. Some types of monkey. And I don't know if they do it intentionally, but there have been cases of moose eating fermented fruit and then stumbling drunk into towns. I've no idea if moose do it intentionally because it doesn't seem wise to get drunk and then stagger, in down the high street and maybe get hit by a car. But
wasn't there? Sorry to cut you off.
No, I was just going to say. Yeah, no. The final thing I was just going to say was, even if in the moose case it's unintentional, you can see how these things happen unintentionally, and then it becomes a learned thing, and then they start to do it intentionally. Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
Wasn't there a study with monkeys at some like tropical beach resort? They would take people's drinks and go get drunk, and then they did a study on it, and they showed that the rates of alcoholism were like almost identical in humans. So like the number of monkeys who like who like passed on alcohol, just weren't interested, like that, it was like the same percentage of the population. And then the ones that like were occasional drinkers, and then the ones that were just full-blown alcoholics. I was like, what? I don't know. I just heard that somewhere.
I never heard of that. That's really interesting. I have to check that out.
Well, a funny personal story. So when I was in India there was this guide that me and my family were with, and he took us to this abandoned house that had been taken over by this species of monkey. And the monkeys had learned that if you steal from someone and run up a tree, they know that you will eventually give them some sort of food to get the stuff back. So when we stopped, the monkey stole a teacup from the van, went up to the top of the tree, and the guide put some food out for the monkey, and the monkey dropped the cup once he'd put the food out. So they're like,
I've seen videos of this.
Super smart. Yeah,
I've seen loads of videos of this. They do it with especially tourist hotspots. They will, they'll steal sunglasses and they'll just sit there and wait. And then somebody will come over, like a park ranger or something like that, and they'll say, "You need to trade something," and then they'll do it. Yeah, they'll always trade.
Like bartering.
Yeah, bartering, exactly.
Yeah.
Have you seen? There's a guy on Instagram that I've seen recently. I don't know if this is completely relevant, but he has a goat. And this goat appears to be an alcoholic. Now, I say that because the first video I ever saw of this, right? He's speaking Spanish, so I was trying to keep up, and I was like, "What's going on here?" The goat. And he goes over there, and he's got this this Spanish beer, like Morello, I think it's called, right, or the Mexican beer, whatever it is. And then he's got an alcohol-free beer, right? And I thought, what's he about to do? He goes to the goat, he gives the goat the alcohol-free beer. The goat's like, "No, like, get it away from me, not interested." Puts the alcoholic one, the goat gets it, tips the head back, and just necks the whole thing in about 2 seconds. And the goat even knows when he tips his head back, he spins the bottle so it goes faster. Like, he knows how to make it. You know, if you swirl it, it moves quicker through the bottle. It is insane. And his whole account is just videos of him giving a bottle of beer to the goat. And he claims that beer is good for goats. He claims that it's good for their health. People complain about it, obviously saying this can't be good. And he's saying he claims it's actually beneficial. But I just found that to be, I don't know if it's like quite in line with the stuff we're discussing, but what an interesting observation. Again, that goats prefer alcoholic beer, and they know the difference between alcoholic and non-alcoholic beer.
Yeah, it's so interesting.
Right? Like, I don't know. Maybe there is some benefit to it. It's funny anyway.
Sounds like a half goat, half university student.
It's basically, yeah. Or as Catherine would know about them, the frat guys. They're called over there, right? These frat guys. Yeah, imagine having that goat just knocking around, just like, this goat will drink you under the table, right? Every time, you know?
Yeah.
But
I've got a couple more examples that I can go through super quick. They're just like, they're super interesting. So another example is crows actually understand the displacement of water better than 6-year-olds. So I don't know if you guys have seen this. Often, you know, there will sometimes be videos of this on social media. So again, I'll play the video. So what you'll find is, so you see in this tube here, you'll have water and then a treat here. And what the crows have figured out is that if they put rocks in, they displace the water and push the treat up so that they can then reach it. And this is, let me skip to a bit of the video where they actually eventually get the treat, maybe this bit. Yeah, so you can see, oh shit, well, so you can see there, they've now pushed the water up enough that they get the treat.
Right.
Which is super interesting. And just the very final thing I was going to show was this one. So let me start here. So this, I believe, is in Japan. And basically there are these crows that there's a certain type of, this was discovered ages ago as well, and you can tell by the quality of the video. So there's a certain type of crow that, a certain type of nut, that crows really desire, but they have a very hard shell. And dropping them on concrete doesn't always break them. And so what crows have learned is to drop them on roads so that cars roll over them like this and break them over. But then they have the issue, like here, the crow's then going down and trying to retrieve the nut from inside without getting hit by a car. So what the crows have learned to do, if I skip ahead, is drop the nut on a zebra crossing where people cross over. So the cars go over the nuts and break them open, but then the crows wait until there's a red light. So the cars stop and then they go down to get the nut. It's super cool. So you can see here, so they've just gone down and they're waiting for the red light. Now it changes. or it's going to change soon. There it changes, and then the crow goes and collects the nut now that it's safe to do so.
That's so cool.
Yeah, super interesting. And this was found out ages ago. This is just, you know, it's a demonstration of the intelligence of animals that we wouldn't necessarily expect because we're not taught about this stuff, in how they are using our societies in some instances to their advantage, right? They can now get access to these nuts where they may not necessarily have been able to before. So yeah,
Wow.
super interesting. That was my last example, but I just wanted to put some. Yeah,
I have a crow story that I saw where this little girl, I think she was autistic or something, and she befriended this crow, and for like 10 years she was best friends with this crow, and she would go to the bus stop every morning for school, and the crow would bring her gifts, like little trinkets that they found on the ground, I guess, and she started collecting them. And then like 10 years later, she had this massive collection of all these things that this crow gave her. But it made me sad because I was like, what happened? Like, what if the little girl had to move, or like what if the crow dies? Like, it's just so sad. Like, how did this friendship end? But yeah, I thought that was really cool.
How long do crows live for?
I've no idea, to be honest. I would guess like 5 to 10 years, something like that.
There's this
if
crow,
they're not hunted, obviously.
Have you seen that crow that talks to the guy? Like, he's learned how to speak certain phrases in it, and it's got this really creepy one. Have you seen this one on Instagram?
No.
You know, I'm having a massive mind blank, and I just can't remember what the crow says. Maybe Annie, can you tell me in the chat if you remember what does the crow say? 'Cause it's really funny and it's super creepy, and the way the crow says it is really creepy, and that's why it's become so viral, because it's just a really creepy thing to hear, you know, and says it in like a really deep voice. But I think crows are awesome. They it seems to be one of the animals that for some reason is just like way more intelligent than they need to be, if that makes sense. You know, like, there's no reason for a crow to be as intelligent as they are in terms of evolution, but you see them playing. I've seen videos of crows that know how to, they pick up a piece of plastic and they know how to like snowboard, and then they pick up the plastic, go back to the top of the hill and snowboard down again. And like, what other reason would they have to do that other than that they enjoy it? And then why are they so intelligent that they understand that and enjoy that? Like, what reason is there for a crow to have that level of understanding? You know, like, as far as I understand, they're not like, dolphins have really complex kind of social hierarchies and stuff like that, so they need to be really smart. Crows, do they have that too? Like,
I don't know.
I would have thought they have a similar life to pigeons, and I love pigeons, but they're not that smart. So what's the deal? You know what I mean? What's the deal there? Like,
like, is their brain more groovy? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, where they've
grooves,
shown that it's not it's not the size of the brain, it's like the number of grooves.
Right.
So maybe they have a groovier brain than other birds. I don't know.
Could be. Yeah.
Also, remember, we think we can maybe see crows and pigeons as having similar lives because they're both species that have kind of become part of human society in a way. But maybe in their natural habitats, they have very different lives. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I wish I could find that viral crow to show you, because it's so funny, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Unfortunately. Maybe, is there no one in the comments seen this viral crow? I don't know. Some creepy crow and a drunk goat. I don't know what your feed looks like.
He's not drunk. He's just got a crow that like always is always with him. Sits on his shoulder, and they go walking through like forests and stuff together, and the crow just says really weird stuff. And it's creepy. That's what anyway, it's definitely viral. Yeah, someone there, UK Night Rider, said they've seen it. Or what's the name then? Could you find it? Maybe it's this Loki the Raven. Maybe it's this one. I don't think it's this one. No. I know this is not entertaining for people.
That was the end. That was the end of my story. I got nothing else for that one.
Yeah, my bad. I wish you could keep going so I could go and find this bloody crow.
I'll share a little anecdote about animal testing. So was reminded of this when you were talking about the rat study. There was one time I was on a work meeting and my boss was like trying to motivate us he brought up this rat study where they had these rats in like a pool of water, and for some of the rats they like left them in the pool of water and just to see how long they would tread water before drowning. And then with another group, they put them in the water, but then after like 60 seconds, they pulled them out. And then they put them back in. And they found that like the first group drowned within like minutes. But then the group where they pulled them out after 1 minute and put them back in, they survived for like almost 24 hours or something crazy. They like tread water for like a very long time before drowning. And I guess my boss's point was like resiliency. Like if you have hope, you'll like persevere longer than if you don't have hope. Like in sales, I don't even know.
Oh my God.
I'm just sitting there like, what the actual fuck? Like, what is this? Like, how is this supposed to be
connection?
inspiring? Yeah. Like I kind of got the connection when he was like, yeah, if you have the mindset that like there's no hope, then you're not gonna get sales because you don't believe that you will. But if you believe that like it's a numbers game, you'll get them, like if you just put in the work, like I guess. But it was just wild that I'm like the only person in this whole group that's seeing this story as like incredibly fucked up, and everyone else is just like, yeah, like,
oh yeah, inspired.
Yeah, grind set.
It's so bizarre.
I found it, by the way, the video.
Oh, nice.
So the thing that this crow says is tickle, tickle. That's yeah, you got to see it. You got to see it. I've got the audio on. I hope it works.
You're really blowing the raspberries today. Cool. And we got a different sound today. So I think he's losing the obsession with tickle, tickle. Tickle, tickle. Tickle, tickle, tickle.
That's crazy.
How good is that?
Birds today are beautiful. It's just.
That's it. That's the clip. It's just the way I loved the way he was like. I think he's losing the obsession with tickle, tickle. It's just immediate tickle, tickle. So I don't know the whole story, but I've seen a few videos like this of people who have made friends with crows, and I guess the pets, and yeah, they're always talking. This one says different stuff. I've seen other videos of crows having chats with people, and have you seen the one where the crow greets people and says you're all right? Have you seen that one?
No.
Oh yeah, this one's an easy one to find, I think. It's a crow talking in a Yorkshire accent.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. You're all right. That's it. You're all right, love. That's the one. This is brilliant. I'm surprised you haven't seen this one. Let's pop it back up again. Here we go.
I've seen, I think it was in either northern Sweden or Finland, a woman who's friends with red squirrels.
Check this one out.
Oh my God.
Isn't it mad? So I think it's just like people, they must have just heard people saying "you all right, love" so many times that they figured out how to imitate it. I don't know. But like I say, they've got no business being this clued up. There's no business being like that. I love it. I think they're awesome. But I'm biased. I think I love all animals. So, can't really.
I'm excited so I'm moving to Tennessee, and my husband and I are going to build a house. Like it's a pretty wooded area, and I'm really excited to put like we want to get one of those wildlife cameras overnight.
Oh, yeah.
And just like film animals, like put one of those mouse wheels and see because apparently if you put a mouse wheel out in the woods, like mice will just come and run on it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I'll put it to the test, but
yeah, no, that'd be really cool. I've always wanted one of those indoor kind of bird viewing platforms.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, those are
you
cool.
can build like an indoor plastic thing that they can come
Yeah,
inside.
where they come inside.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Or to sit outside with one of them on your face. Have you seen people who do that? They camouflage themselves and they put a plastic thing here and like glasses so you can, you know, so they can't see your eyes, but you can see them, and put loads of food out and then just sit still. And then birds and squirrels and all sorts will come and sit like here, like
That
in
seems
your
more
face.
creepy.
I mean, if you're gonna make it creepy, it's creepy, but not it's not creepy to the animals. I mean, they don't know what's going on. But I suppose it'd be creepy. I mean, the best view you're ever gonna have of wildlife, isn't it? Like they're literally in your eyes, basically. So quickly, let's have a quick acknowledgement of some of the super chats that we've received, which we've received a couple. Thank you, Mark J, who was referring to earlier on when we were discussing the kind of violent cults. He said, regarding the potential of non-violent change, we should always remember what Gandhi was able to accomplish non-violently, which is true. There are lots of examples throughout history of change coming about with non-violent disobedience and civil disobedience. To add some nuance to that, Mark, I do agree with you, but we also have to acknowledge that in most of these cases there was also violence happening at the same time. Although it is widely regarded that the non-violent stuff had the bigger impact, we can't ignore that there was also violence that probably had some impact as well. But Mark, I do mostly agree with you. Thank you so much for supporting. And also from, I'm assuming, Anthony Carbajal, who said, supporting amazing advocacy. Keep it up, please. More of this. Thank you, mate. Appreciate the support. And I think that's all that we had today. And so, yeah, a big thank you to everybody who came along and enjoyed the stream. And I hope you learned something today and gave you some kind of good news update. Thanks to everybody who donated and supports the stream. It's awesome. Makes it all, keeps us on the track, keeps this thing going. So thank you. Any final comments, guys, before we say goodbye?
If anyone has any stories, then send them. Yeah, send them our way. Because obviously we do this regularly, so we're always looking for new stories.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do. And also get over and check out Catherine's content. And what's your @? I've put it in the description, so go and click it there. But yeah, Catherine, if you want to tell people what it is as well.
Yeah, it's just Catherine Klein.
Cool. Do you want to maybe give a brief idea of what you do for the people who've not seen your stuff? Give us a quick sales pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I actually posted a video titled "What even is my content?" Because I think I just make catharsis for vegans at this point.
Right.
But yeah, I talk about animal rights and anti-capitalism politics. But
Cool. If that sounds interesting to you, get over there and check it out. Or if you're, pro-murdering CEOs, that's probably the place for you. No, it's great to have you here. Thanks a lot for coming on and providing some of these interesting takes on some of these topics. It's really good to have your input. Everybody get over there, subscribe, check out our content, check out all Lawrence's content as well if you're interested in antinatalism, which is what Lawrence covers. If you don't know what it is, better get over to his channel and check it out. Lawrence Anton. Thanks again, everybody, and we will see you all in the next one.